Heyo everyone, how y'all doing, and welcome back to the Milestone Park for the final speed build video where we built the coaster that basically encircles the entire island and maybe takes it over a little bit. But before we really get into the coaster, I want to quickly say two things about it. First off, and most important, I am not the best coaster builder by a long shot. For me, the coaster is good if it has all green stats, is kinda smooth, and shows what I want to show. And secondly, the coaster, well, I went a little bit crazy with the theming. I mean, you can already see that by the length of today's video, so yeah, the coaster itself, maybe not as important, but the theming that surrounds it, a lot more. But yeah, you can really see that like the coaster is not really important because I think not even at 1/4 of the video, the coaster is pretty much finished and we just go into building the station and all the scenery that surrounds it and just the general theming of the coaster. But yeah, we should probably talk a little bit about the coaster. So the idea was for the coaster to go completely across the island, or at least encircle it, not go across it. But it does go across the Acropolis because I just thought it would be a nice thing to have the coaster actually go like, well, basically do a loop around the roof of the temple. And then go in front of the temple just because it looks nice when you go into the park or you go into the island and look at it from the bridge. Then it has like a nice viewpoint of like with the coaster and the temple. So that was just like, again, the coaster is just built for aesthetic reasons almost. But in a way it also works really well because, well, all of the stats are green, and I can honestly say maybe I wouldn't ride this coaster myself. Not because of the drops or like the loops, but more of the lift hill. Like I said in the previous video, I was scared of coasters until I was like maybe 13, 12 or something like that. And I'm not scared of coasters anymore. Though I do hold on to like the safety equipment a little bit stronger when going up the lift hill. And I have no idea why, because the lift hill is probably like the most controlled situation on the coaster by like, well, the operators. So there's no reason I should be scared of the lift hill, but maybe it's just like the feeling of going up that scares me, because I have a fear of like heights. Or at least heights where I've like the chance to fall down. And then in my brain, like when we go up a lift hill, I'm just like, I could fall down here. I don't know why, because I'm completely strapped in, but for some reason my brain just thinks that way. But yeah, in the first draft of this coaster, it didn't go like encircle the entire island, it just went into the back of the island. So in the end, and you will see me build that right now, it took a little bit of like a few attempts, but in the end it does go across the entire island, and it actually interacts a little bit with like the bridge. And I can also say I don't build the bridge because, I mean, it fits because I don't like building bridges. So I mean, I built rock bridges, which I would say are like the easiest bridges to build, because you basically just have a path and then build rocks underneath it and maybe some fences on the side. I don't really know why I hate building bridges. I mean, they're not that hard to build, but it's just, I don't know, I don't like it. For some reason it just always was just like, I need to build a bridge. Oh, wait, I can build something different. Let's go to that instead of building a bridge. Like in Theonopolis, it's a real issue that the bridges are not there. Like I wanted to say the bridges are not built, but they're just not even an attempt at them. I actually removed one bridge because I just thought like, I don't want to build this. And that's the bridge going from the Acropolis to like the back area of Theonopolis. I replaced that with like, what is it called? Well, a cable lift or something like that. I don't know. I am bad with words. But yeah, I turned the back of the island into this kind of a more swampy area because I just wanted to use it, and I always wanted to have like a swampy area to this island for some reason. But We will go back into that later because it plays a big role into the theming of the coaster, which is going to be basically just a huge reference to the Mystery Zoo. Because I haven't teased that one enough. I actually plan on teasing it even more so when when Planet Zoo is closer to release. Just because I want to be like that huge asshole that just wants to tease that. Yeah. I can't really put more of like an explanation to it, besides that I'm like really buzzed about building the Mystery Zoo. And that, well, let's just say I'm somewhat of an asshole sometimes. But anyway, so for the station, or at least the queue, well, the queue is also one of the things that I don't really like building. So all the queues in the Milestone Park are basically, well, they don't have like inside dividers, like the inside fences. They're just there. So yeah, this park really just shows like what I like to build and what I don't like to build. So anyway, for the station, I think it's the best building so far in the Milestone Park. Not because it's like jaw-dropping or so, like it's not like the pagoda or the temple, but it just fulfills its purpose so well. Like it perfectly mixes the Theonopolisian or Theonopolis style and the Ozaru style, which is like the Eastern Asian and the Asian Grecian style, without one or the other overshadowing the other. It's very basic in a way, because, well, it's not a huge building, it's just a station. But it just works so well for what it was intended to achieve. And yeah, I don't really have much else to say on the station, just because it is just a station. It doesn't really have like, oh, you know, this little side chamber or something. Like, it's not really big. It's just like encompassing the station area and then nothing much beyond that. No, the idea for the inside of the station was actually to have it a little bit destroyed. Like a little bit like run down, you know, the walls are basically falling down. I didn't go hugely into this because, well, I wanted to keep it a little bit pretty, and the station is a little bit like, I like to build stations, but they are annoying. Because of those fences that you have in the station. Like, you can't turn them off, so you basically have just two giant blocks at either end of the station where you just have to build inside that fence and build over it. Like, you can go crazy with it, like you can go crazy with the queues, you can basically go crazy with everything. But for some reason I always feel like I'm a little bit more restricted when it comes to the stations. I don't know why, but it's just probably because of those fences, and I want to turn them off but I can't, and it's a little bit annoying. But yeah, that's mostly it on the station, because again, it's not a huge building. And it's one of the final buildings that we built today. Or it's the second to the last building. Because the other building is going to be, well, I wanted this park to be functional. Because I do know that for most people this will be like their last like taste of Ozaru. But also maybe their only like taste of Theonopolis, because, well, I was complaining about the frame rate in Ozaru when I was recording, although that was more dependent on the recording software, because OBS seems to hate me, because I don't know, I stepped over to another recording software, so now everything should be fine. But as I said, I was complaining about the frame rate in Ozaru while recording. And then I noticed, or I didn't notice, I just went back into Theonopolis, and then I thought, like, why am I complaining? Theonopolis is worse. Like, I get like, it's a stable frame rate, but it's a frame rate of like 10 to 20 max. Yes, that's also a reason why I really plan to have Theonopolis finished by the end of November max. Just because the frame rate right now is kind of bugging it down. So I do have some coasters that I still need to finish in Theonopolis, but I don't plan on building any huge projects. Like, I'm not going to build, like, let's say another Pharos or something. I basically plan to fill out the park and then have it a little bit, like, done. So there's not going to be, like, huge city streets or so anymore, I think. I mean, I say that, but then I also say that I'm a squirrel, which basically means that I have almost zero control of like when inspiration hits me. And when it does hit me, it kinda goes crazy. I mean, case in point, this coaster. Actually the old Milestone park, because I wanted to keep this small. And then, well, this happened. But also on the point of the squirrel, so you might have noticed that the squirrel icon or like the profile icon has changed. Mostly because the squirrel that you saw when you subscribed kind of freaked me out. Just because it was, well, it was inspired by Sonic, so you could see that in the eyes. But for me, those eyes just felt like that. And so I have changed that. I am still working on the, well, newer version. So what you see is still like a mock-up version, but yeah. The first version of the squirrel was, let's just say it haunted me in my worst nightmares, just because it was so creepy to me. But anyway, back to what we're building, because that's a little bit, well, it's not Blanco related news, but again, I really like the building just because of the purpose that it serves. Though I do know that it's really busy. Like with all the woodwork and the roof and all the, like, I would say like, not pediments, but the frieze work and such, it's a really busy building from the outside, and then it's really peaceful almost on the inside, which is a little bit strange. So yeah, it's like the opposite on the inside as it is from the outside. Like the outside is very pristine, very busy, and then the inside is very run down, I would say, and not as busy. It's very like peaceful and not as like peace clutter. Because that's one thing that I do need to like sometimes keep in mind, that I'm like, you know, building a little bit too much, like not giving like a building like a little bit more peaceful, or like not rustic, but just a little bit less piece use. Because I sometimes get a little bit carried away. And also like I'm going to quickly call out a comment, because I mean, it just, in some way it didn't bug me, but it bugged me a little bit how it was maybe approached. Maybe, but someone said like, oh, you know, I don't like to go negative, but I don't really like how much you, well, build, well, not how much you build, but that I kind of went overboard with the scenery in the Gharial habitat. And I honestly thought that that's not like a bad or negative comment. I mean, it was basically not criticism, but feedback, I would say it. So I'm good with you guys calling me my build shit or so. If you just provide like, oh, you might have done this better, or, you know, generally be just, let's say, respectable about it, then I just consider it feedback. I also said that to the guy, like, I don't think this is a negative comment, it's just your opinion and your feedback. And I might not have said this lately, but any feedback you guys give is always appreciated. I mean, feedback is, for me, like, I would consider that the best way to improve on buildings and such. So if you guys are ever like thinking, oh, I don't really like how you've built this, don't be afraid to say it. I mean, I generally just, well, I basically also live in the comments, so but I generally just don't think that's negative feedback if you are respectful about it. Just don't be a dick about it, I would say. Then I would just listen. But anyway, so for the queue, because we need to talk about the building again, because otherwise I just get off topic too much. But yeah, I said already I don't really like building queues. Or at least now I say that because I have the mind of a goldfish, so I sometimes forget halfway through what I've said and what I didn't say. But I don't really like building queues because like I get a lot of inspiration while building a station, while building just buildings or scenery. But when I build a queue, it's just like blank. I don't know what to build, I don't know how to approach it, and in the end I usually end up with really blocky queues. Which this is a prime example of. So yeah, the queues aren't the most special. Like sometimes I do get a very strange inspiration and I build, I would say, good queue. But those moments are very rare. Although I do have a video planned for when we go back into Theonopolis because there's a coaster there that I have said multiple times that I wanted to make a POV of, but I just constantly forgot to do it. But I'm really impressed by the queue that I've built for that one, so yeah. Sometimes I get weird inspiration for a queue, but most of the times I don't, and I have no clue what to build for a queue. So yeah, the building side of me then just goes blank. But for what we're building right now is a little bit of like a staff building and a souvenirs area. I say area because it has the Looney Bloon shop and the Just a Memento shop, I think, which are the souvenir shops, and there's one other souvenir shop, but I never use that one because I don't know, I just don't use it. But I wanted this park to be like fully operational, so it needed a staff area or staff building. Otherwise, all the staff would just quit constantly because they don't have a place to rest. But also, I forgot to add a toilet to the Milestone park. So, I recognized or saw that when a lot of people were doing like, I'm going to call it the I need to pee walk. So a lot of peeps in the park were doing that walk, and then I realized, did I place a toilet? And then I just thought like, oh wait, I didn't. So we built the food building or the food stall and toilet building from Ozaru, and it didn't have a toilet. But I basically modified it a bit so that it now does have a toilet. So now every facility that the guest needs and the staff needs are in the park. So when you open up the park, because I am planning to make this available on the workshop, because again, Theonopolis might not be available to you guys just because it's, well, if you have a decent PC and I do end up finish it, it's at the time I want to finish it, you might run it, but most likely you really need like a really buff PC to actually handle Theonopolis. And then, you know, Ozaru's gone, so this is the only taste of Ozaru, but I'm repeating myself. But yeah, for this park, I really wanted to have it on the workshop so that you guys can go through it, can see it, and maybe have a little bit of nostalgia for Ozaru. But this building is... it's the last building we built, but it's not the best building I built, I would say. It has a little bit more Theonopolis than Ozaru, because the Ozaru style really only comes through in this building by the woodwork and the canopy on front, but beyond that it's not that big of a building, and it's not really intended to be a huge building. It's actually meant to be quite a forgettable building. Like, you have the massive lift hill, which still scares me to this day. Well, the lift hill in game doesn't scare me, but just lift hills in general. But you have the giant lift hill right on the left side, so I just thought like, alright, if this building is like drawing attention away from the lift hill, then it does its job wrong. So yeah, the building is quite forgettable, quite meh, I would say. But still, it's a bit maybe piece heavy. Well, not piece heavy because all the walls are just normal basic grid walls, so it's not really that piece heavy. But just detail heavy, I would say. But now we are finally on to what actually takes a long time of this video, which is the theming of the coaster. And as I said, it needs, or I wanted it to be, just a huge reference to the Mystery Zoo, which none of you guys actually correctly guessed so far where it is located. So, or not where it's located, but just what it's about. Well, beyond the things I've given you with like the red pandas and the floating islands. Yeah, Alia, that news wasn't really new, it was just basically given. So, you still don't know it. And I'm happy with that. But anyway, so the floating islands, I basically wanted the coaster to go through it. And the name of the coaster is actually Expedition Mystery Zoo. Yeah, a really original name, I would say, but the idea was just to have it go through all of these islands and almost smash into them, at least plant-wise, not rock-wise. Because that's the one thing I do kind of well with coasters. I have not one of them so far clipped through like terrain or rocks. But then I also like constantly ride them myself so that I can see like, oh, it's clipped through a rock here. So I, you know, that's just a general tip actually for coaster building. Just ride it a lot of times so you can like really make sure that your coaster doesn't clip through rocks. Unless it's intended to, because there are coasters which are intended to clip through things. But yeah, the floating islands, they were fun to build, and those trees, this might be just a little bit of like a tip, well, a little bit of information on the Mystery Zoo, but I might want to kind of find like a replacement for those trees, or like a close lookalike of those trees for the Mystery Zoo, because I really like them. I forgot the name of those trees, but it will probably pop up back when I build or when I place one of those trees. Maybe it's like a Manula tree, or like, I don't know why, but Manula is in my mind, so probably not the right word or the right name, but I really like those trees. Let's keep it at that. But you can already see also that yeah, the Mystery Zoo is not going to be in like a northern or temperate place. Yeah, because palm trees. And I wanted to say all those ferns or like those palm tree bushes thingies. But those were just taken because they are the closest thing to those ferns that we had in Planet Zoo. Because we don't have a lot of nature in Planet Coaster, so I had to be like, alright, what looks the closest to the ferns or the palm tree bushy thingies in Planet Zoo that we have in Planet Coaster? Same goes with the flowers and such. I'm really happy that in Planet Zoo we have a lot more nature than in Planet Coaster. I mean, we have nature in Planet Coaster, but it's just like, yeah, it's like the necessary items, and beyond that there's not much more. Although I was surprised that like the trees that I use in Planet Coaster, which are the poplar trees for those like the spiky trees, I would say. Like I choose those as like a replacement for the cypress trees or the cypress trees because, well, I didn't like the huge like blue tone on the cypress trees, so I used the poplar trees. But in Planet Zoo, the poplar trees are very different than the ones in Planet Coaster, so I was a little bit like, huh? When I looked at the trees in Planet Zoo. But yeah, that's just like, not that useful information, I would say. But it's just what I experienced. But yeah, the floating rocks, I really, I already said this, but I want the coaster to really go through it, because the coaster is really meant as the reference to the Mystery Zoo. The carousel is a little bit more Ozaru, and I think it's called the top spin, but it's just a more intense flat ride. It's a little bit more geared towards Theonopolis. So it made sense for the coaster to be really heavily dependent on the reference to the Mystery Zoo. And I have to say this again, I really like just building floating islands. Like, I've made a point of it to have no floating islands in Theonopolis, so it feels really just freeing to build a lot of floating islands here in the, well, the coaster that is referencing the Mystery Zoo. But yeah, the idea was also just to actually build portals. Like, I'm not a huge fan or just huge on building like a lot of effects, but the first draft of the coaster was to actually have it like go through portals, but like the moment that you get close to the portal fills. So that was the idea actually for the floating rocks islands, to make portals like you saw in the first rock floating island, or the floating rock island, which was just a round circle which the coaster passes through. And the first idea was to make that into some kind of portal, and the moment that you like almost touch the portal, it fills and just shuts down. And I wanted to do that, but then I also thought like, alright, this is maybe a little too magic heavy for me. Like, I like floating islands and such, but to have like so much magic that it's just like magic explains everything, then I just don't like it. Like, also with like, let's say TV shows or anything like where the answer is just magic, I don't really get into those, because I just want some, like, I want a little bit of like realism. Not a lot, just a little bit. Yeah, I say as I put a huge amount of plans on floating islands. Again, if you don't like me put a lot of plans on floating islands or just a lot of plans, I can completely accept that. I completely see why you want a bit more normal buildings or plans. But yeah, I think it's just my way of building right now. Just to have like an insane amount of plans. But in a way, the islands are a little bit realistic, because there are not a lot of plans down or like on the underside of the islands. So that's like my little bit of like realism on the floating islands. I know that sounds weird because they are floating islands, but that's just like, I want a little bit of realism. Like, plants wouldn't just grow out of every side of an island, especially if it's floating and it's made out of rocks. Yeah, the islands in the Mystery Zoo are also going to be pretty, like, substantially larger, because they need to have habitats, and I want a 50, or not a 50, I want a habitat that contains somewhat around 50 red pandas, just because red pandas. But now we are building the kind of like swampy area that the coaster goes through. The idea was to have like some like references to islands just falling down. Where actually the first idea, like beyond the portals, was also to make it look like the island was slowly taken apart. Like that the floating islands were actually once part of the island. I dropped that and actually dropped the islands as well. Like, some parts of the swamp have like the same plants that you will find on the islands. And that's just like a reference to like, oh, this island has fallen down. Yeah, I just wanted a little bit more variety in the swampy area. And yes, I can finally say variety a little bit normal. I do need to like take some time and like think like, alright, say it correctly now, and then I can say it. But yeah, I wanted to talk quickly about something else, but I kinda lost it because I have the mind of a goldfish. Oh yeah, now I remember. So I recently, like, this is completely useless information, but you know, with Planet Zoo coming along and, well, not having any red pandas in the beta, I looked up a lot of red panda videos because I'm not obsessed with red pandas, but I just really like the animals because, I mean, they're basically just really fuzzy, just floofy, crazy little animals. And I found out that they make kind of weird sounds. I never really thought about, oh, what sounds does a red panda make? They can get very strange, I would say. They, I mean, they're also pretty adorable, or like even more adorable than I thought, because if they feel like they need to defend themselves, they stand up on their hind legs, and then it's just like for probably like a predator or something like that of a red panda, that would probably look a little bit more intimidating, but for, well, me and probably every human on the planet, that just looks adorable. Like, that is basically a living teddy bear with a huge fluffy tail. So yeah. Anyway, so we're not doing much more on like the Milestone Island because, well, it's finished after this episode. I'm probably going to do like a video showing the coaster or like showing a POV of the coaster and a little bit of like showing the island off. There's probably going to be one video because the island is so small that it can be done in one video. And I don't want to like stretch out content on multiple videos if I can do it in one. But yeah, the island is pretty much done beyond, well, we still have actually the Sword of Rock Island. That will be the center of the lift, or like the top of the lift, which was originally intended to again be a portal. But this was probably the most not annoying rock island to build, but it was a little bit like, oh, I need to really make sure that the coaster actually doesn't smash into this. So yeah, it succeeded. Like, actually the first attempt at the coaster going through it, like I paused it at the right second just so that I could place all the scenery, because this is the one island that the scenery is actually really close to the terrain. So I needed to pause the coaster right when it goes through this island, and then I could build along to it. And again, I'm really happy when Plan Zoo gets released, because now I'm using like those round bushes that I actually have never used. Well, I've used them, but not as well. Here I'm just using them to simulate like grass and small bushes, like small little weeds and such. And yeah, in Plan Zoo we have other plants for that, and they look 100 times better, because actually going back from Plan Zoo into Plan Coaster, you really see that like the graphic side of it has hugely improved. Because looking back on Planet Coaster from Planet Zoo, everything feels a little bit more like clay, like a little bit more not unnatural, but just it has that little bit of like a clay-like feeling to me. But yeah, back to what we're building, because well, I actually was talking about what we're building, so kudos to me, I would say. Also, kudos to you for sticking with this commentary, because well, unless you have me muted, that is. But today's commentary is a little bit all over the place, because we are finishing the Milestone Park. So again, kudos to you for sticking through it, and also kudos to you because you basically, well, you guys seem to enjoy this little weird project. Though I'm really happy to go back into Theonopolis and finish Theonopolis, which is probably going to take a few more videos. I am thinking like, are we going to reach 100 videos, or are we going to stick at, let's say, 90 or such? I mean, it would be kind of impressive if we reach 100 videos. Maybe I might make like 100 video and then the park is done. But yeah, we now are like 68 or 67 videos for building Theonopolis, or like speed build videos. So I have a feeling that we won't reach 100. With me planning to have it done by the end of November. We might reach 80 or 90 at most. Maybe. But yeah, the last islands are a little bit more, well, I use a few more palm trees just because the Mystery Zoo is going to have palm trees. And it was, as I said, originally intended to have a portal to go to the Mystery Zoo. But in the end, that was just too much magic for me. I still really like those trees, so I used a little bit of a too big tree right there. So it's yeah, it was just a little bit too big and was overshadowing the portal floating island, I would say. I really like just how everything in this park turned out. Even though it doesn't have a bridge, it doesn't have like a very like concrete entrance. It was just a little fun side project. Just a bit to like calm down from Ozaru and slowly move back into Theonopolis. Yeah, I don't think I have much more to say. So again, I'm just going to keep it there. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you do, I hope to see you back in the next one. I hope all of you had an amazing day. Again, thank you all to everything we have achieved so far and hope to achieve further on. And yeah, I'm just going to probably leave you here with that because I don't have anything to talk about anymore. Again, just thank you all. I'm still debating whether I want to call you the squirrel family, the squirrel scurry and such, but I'm probably going to make a poll about that as soon as I get the community tab, which is supposed to be pretty soon. Again, all of you guys are amazing and I hope to see you back in Theonopolis when we get back to that, which is probably also this week. Anyway, again, you guys are amazing. Also, don't forget to hit the like button because it does help out a lot to, well, basically bring out the videos to, well, more people, I would say. I think that's how YouTube works, but then YouTube is just a giant mystery. But again, I'm saying this for like the third time, but all of you guys have an amazing day and bye bye.